I'm Sarah Holbrook. I'm the Executive Director of the Pinhead Institute here in Telluride, Colorado, and also the lucky person who gets to interview the mayor, Sean Murphy.
Sarah, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm feeling a little bit, a little nervous about the fact that I can swing around in these chairs. So try to keep me still today,
All
okay?
right,
Because I'm full of kinetic energy.
Lock and load.
And speaking of what else is unusual in the studio, we have two guest visitors. Our friend Sia, who was a television news producer at ABC News in London back in the day, and is your dog going to make an appearance on the camera?
Come on over here.
He's been so good. Can you get up?
Come on.
Yeah.
Get up.
And believe us when we say there's a gorgeous big white standard poodle who's in the studio with us.
Come on.
He's
shy.
adorable and very shy, but also very thoughtful and has lots of questions for the mayor, no doubt.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to start with questions for the community and
Sure.
from the community, and then we can go to what's happened in the town council and stuff like that.
Of course.
So one of the questions I had is that people who are, middle or low income working people here in Telluride have noticed that there's a new application for housing, and they're wondering what that housing is. So that probably is also something that was going on in the council meeting. But talk to us about what housing is going to come up on the lottery and what the deal is with that, because that is a question I've heard from a number of people. Often in the community, the question is, what are we going to do about affordable housing? And I guess right now is an opportunity for some people to take occupancy of some affordable housing. So let's talk about that.
So as we've talked about a couple of times in the past, so we're nearing completion of two projects in town. One is the SMPA lot, which we decided to call the Silverjack building.
Ah, okay.
And then the other one is the Lot B project, which are the 16 larger family-sized units out
right
on
off
Lot
the
B,
valley floor.
off of Mahoney Drive, which we decided to call the Longwill 16, because apparently that was the name of a dairy that was on the valley floor historically.
Oh, cute. The Longwill 16. So those are 16 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments,
there's
right?
actually there's 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms.
Wow, that's big.
I think the 80A unit has 2 bedrooms, so there's no one there.
Wow, that's big. And those are for sale or for rent?
Those are for sale.
Okay.
So those are 16 units at that location, an additional 10 units down at the Four Corners location, all of which, what we did at last Tuesday's town council meeting is we basically decided there was a request from the chief administrator of the town, Diane Kipfer, to reserve 2 units for employees.
Of the town.
Why, you might ask? Because we have an enormously difficult time both recruiting employees and retaining employees. And for certain employees, like first responders, we require them to live within a certain minimum distance of town, partly because preference is to have them in town. And for example, in the Virginia Placer project that we completed in May of 2018, of those 26 units, we reserved 2 for first responders.
Great.
Those were rental, though. These are all 26. These 2 other locations are going to be for sale.
So it's 10 at the Four Corners and it's 16 at the valley floor. Okay, got it.
So what we decided to do at town council this time, we followed the recommendation that 2 units of the 26 total be reserved for town employees.
Could they be either place, or are they both in?
We specifically identified a 4-bedroom unit within the Lot B project and a 3-bedroom unit within the SMPA. Or actually, no, they're both at the Longwell project. So they're both at the Lot B project.
Okay, got it. And now let me ask you this: do first responders go in a separate auction just for those 2?
They actually get additional lottery entries.
Okay, got it.
And actually, this question came up yesterday. And those of you who are in search and rescue, there is a on-call requirement, certain number of minimum hours per week or month, and then there's a certification letter required from that organization or from the sheriff's office in order for us to treat you like the other town marshals and other first responders that work for the town, the fire district, etc. So, but what we will give them additional lottery entries for these 24 remaining units, but they won't have their own special lottery.
Got it. And so the lottery, you get more opportunities to be picked in the lottery if you are a longtime local.
If you're a longtime local, you get an
extra
draw. You get an extra ball. If you are someone who has worked in these emergency response capacities, you get an extra ball. If you are graduated from Telluride High School, you get an extra ball. 4 years full high school experience here.
If you're a Pinhead intern, you get not
well,
yet.
or if you're Pinhead director, yeah. But we try to at least accommodate certain people who've made either large outsized contributions to the local community or who have been here for an extended period of time in order to let them have a chance and maybe a little bit more of a chance at having some of the town constructed housing.
Wow.
So the controversy surrounding the reservation of the units for town employees, and this is very important for people to understand.
There's a controversy in Telluride that's shocking.
Never, no.
Shocked.
No, and apparently this, what happens here is the Telluride Housing Authority Subcommittee, at the beginning of the project and toward the end of the project, considers whether or not there should be any reservation of any units for any particular
Anything.
class
And in this case,
of
it's
people.
for the town employees.
In this case, because we had reserved 2 units back a year ago for the first responders, the town administrator came to us and said, look, I'm having a problem retaining a marshal who's got a family. We're going to lose him if we don't provide a unit. There are apparently 15% of our town employees, so we have 75 people total, so you're the mathematician, not I, but that's upwards of 20 people who are seeking to buy housing. So we had expressions of interest from 15% from 20 some odd of our employees, of the 75 employees, that said yes, if a unit were available for a town resident or a town employee, that person would want to buy it. So what we decided is, obviously that's almost the project total. We wouldn't reserve all of these for town employees, but we would reserve 2. So the discussion came up then because at the subcommittee level 2 weeks ago, the subcommittee had decided, okay, we'll reserve a 3-bedroom and a 2-bedroom for town employees. Separate and apart from that, we also had a dynamic that was brewing where our town manager was being wooed by both Aspen and Vail, offered $100,000 more base salary, offered a house. The Vail house, for example, is a 4-bedroom house with an additional 2-bedroom lock-off, all dedicated to the manager. And
Got it.
as we know, the last manager of Vail was our former manager, and so that was just a husband and wife that had a 6-bedroom.
Right.
So we're not contemplating anything like that here, but we have a town manager who happens to have 4 small kids, all under the age of 10. And they've been living in a
Pinhead.
2-bedroom condo.
Oh dear.
Mom and dad in one room and all 4 kids in the other room.
So that's the 4-bedroom that you reserved.
We, as a council, 4 of us decided that it was important at this juncture because we had the inventory available, and mostly because we knew that if we don't do this, we're going to lose the town manager. Because Telluride really is below market when it comes to both salary for a town manager position as well as the housing. We've historically tried to address that by saying, okay, we'll give the manager a housing allowance every month, but you can't rent.
There's nothing to rent.
For $3,000 a month here, a 3 or 4 bedroom home. So, and of course, if you're going to purchase that, that's upwards of $3 to $5 million. So, in this case, it wasn't working for the manager and his family, and several of us thought, you know what? While we have the opportunity and we're about to bring this inventory online, we might as well reserve, instead of the 2-bedroom. Why don't we go ahead and move the manager into the 4-bedroom? He's living in a town-owned 2-bedroom right now. Ding
then
ding.
that
So we've solved for the 2-bedroom issue
some
that was requested, and then all we've done is flip the unit size from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom. So in effect, 2 bedrooms were lost to the general public. Certain council members felt very strongly and negatively about this and have taken to Facebook and have been extremely vocal. That's obviously their right, but if you balance the entire equation, and would you like to spend 25 to 50 grand every 2 years to go head hunting for a new manager?
That doesn't seem
I don't
like
think
money
that's a
well
good
spent
use
for
of
the
public
town.
money. So in this case, the manager, it's the same as the current situation. He will be allowed to purchase this unit, but if he ever leaves the employment of the town, he must sell the unit either
And then
to
the
the
town
town
gets it back.
or to another eligible town employee.
Right.
So all this is doing is basically giving a larger unit size, keeping it available for a town employee. In this case, it'll happen to be the manager for whatever his tenure is here, but then that will go back into our pool, so to speak, and will be available for another employee if the next manager doesn't need a unit of that size. So that's as simple as it is.
So one of the other questions from the community is exactly when is the deadline, and when will these housing units be made available, and when can people move in?
The Regional Housing Authority right now is in a little bit of flux, and so they needed us first to fix the income tiers applicable to each of the 26 units, as well as to sign off on pricing, which we internally needed to back into whatever the formula was to collect, X percent of the entire amount due and our subsidy remaining at Y. So we ran all those numbers.
Have you done that math?
Thankfully, Lance McDonald, the planner, did that math, and so we adopted that formally at the last meeting of the town council when we both reserved 2 of the 26 units. We also set the pricing and we set the tier eligibility, so income asset eligibility levels for each of the other 24 units.
So that's all set.
That is all set. So now it's in the hands of the Housing Authority. My understanding is that in August, They will be starting to do open houses of the two properties. They're not complete yet,
Right.
but some of them are at a state where you can walk through, obviously. So the public will have a number of weeks to go through these, and then I believe it's the end of August is when we'll have the formal lottery, and then most of the units, we're thinking probably the second week of November right now is when people will be able to close.
And now, what about the buildings that are kind of across from Camel's Garden? That's on, it's that big development project on the transfer warehouse block of things.
Okay, you mean behind the Strong House, in effect?
Yeah,
between
behind
the
the
transfer
Strong
warehouse
House.
and
Yes,
the Strong
because
House?
I thought that was supposed to have some affordable housing in it. Is it all market?
No, that has
rate?
some affordable housing. They had a mitigation requirement that I think
Right.
required 4 units
Yeah,
of
so
affordable
will those
housing.
become available, and does the town
Well,
handle that?
the town's not constructing that project, so we basically are, like you, waiting on that to be finished.
Interesting.
So once that is finished, an
Then the
additional
town
4
handles
units.
that?
The town will actually, those are mitigation units. So in that case, we don't have to do a lottery for those because they're not town constructed. So it'll be up to the housing authority as to whether it wants to lottery off. That what they might do is basically gauge demand. I'm
Right.
sure there will be more than 4 parties seeking those units. And so I would think that it is at their discretion to lottery them off if they want to. But otherwise, that should be coming on the heels, I would assume, probably within early next year, perhaps.
Right,
I mean,
'cause
that
it looks
project
like
has
it's coming
taken,
along.
not to brag about town construction,
Yeah.
but we started our project a year later than they did, and we're going to finish this November.
Wow.
Their project has been a bit more prolonged. Yes, it was larger in scale, but
Kudos
can't
to fast
give you-
construction.
yes,
Doesn't
exactly.
always happen, so
no
congratulations.
criticism of Warner Katzman, who's building the transfer station project, but you will be happy to see those come online as well.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
within the next, let's say, 8 or 9 months,
Right.
we'll have at least 24 plus another 4, so you'll have 28 units
Yeah.
that'll be available
Yeah.
for additional housing.
And now you and I have talked before about my desire for Tesla superchargers somewhere in this area, but there's a question from the community about the underground parking structure that's going to have 70 spots or something like that.
Right.
Will that have electric charging? Because the friend who asked the question has an electric motorcycle and wants to charge.
The answer is yes, but I don't believe it'll be a Tesla supercharger.
Oh, no, certainly not. Yeah, not there.
My recollection is, and this is all based on the capacity to serve, the electric, again, we've talked about this many times. I'm not an engineer and I'm not smart enough to know what the technical terms are, but we sized, I believe there are 3 chargers. We sized them according to the available space in the electric supply equation.
Nice. Okay.
So there will be chargers down
there. So
there.
there will be. You can charge your electric motorcycle
Yep.
there once it's done. When is it going to be done?
That will be done as well in November. I mean, the garage part is already complete. We
Yeah,
completed
it's just you
that
can't
last
open it
spring.
up to-
We decided that because of liability and safety reasons, we
Don't
didn't
do it.
want people going in and out of there
Yeah.
until the entire project was done, so that nothing was falling down from
Yes.
upper story construction site
I
onto
can only imagine.
the garage.
So,
So yes.
So we finished my questions from the community, and that leads back then to the town council meeting that just happened. What are the other headlines? Let's talk about
Well,
whatever
since
else
you
is
mentioned
going
parking, we actually spent over an hour talking through what our current parking rate structure is. And so just to remind everybody, so the meters on Main Street and the adjacent side streets and a portion of Pacific, those meters have been basically an evergreen cash source for the town. We used them 15 years ago to acquire and then fully pay off Carhenge. Now we've taken all that meter revenue bonded in order to build the 77 space garage down below the SMPA corner there. And so that that bond will be paid off probably in another 15 years. Depending on where we set the rates. The baseline case is if we keep everything the way it is, which is $1 an hour on the street, if we apply $1 an hour in the garage and we had like a 2% annual increase, we would pay it off in 15 years. We discussed specifically the idea that we looked at parking rates in Vail, parking rates in Aspen, parking rates in Crested Butte, parking rates in other mountain communities, Durango, and decided that we are on the low side for sure in an hourly rate, and then we sort of kind of discuss the tension between, if you want people circulating on Main Street, should you make Main Street more expensive and make that new garage cheaper so that people will just put their car away and think, okay, I'll only pay $1 an hour and maybe I have to pay $1.50 on Main Street. So what we did is we decided, we didn't take any action, it was just a work session, but it was more to give us and the community the information and sort of the heads up in advance that sometime next year, we set parking rates when we do our budget exercise, which is in the fall. So
okay, so you're thinking about it now
just to
in
populate
advance of the
people's
fall.
minds with the idea that, hey, we don't need to do anything different than we're doing now, but what if we increase
Let's
them
jack it
incrementally?
up and make everybody
Well,
park
then we could
in
pay off the garage
Carhenge.
in 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
There is that
Does
too.
Carthage get full in the summer? I know it's full in the winter because of skiing.
My observation living very close to it is
Yeah.
it never fills up in the
So
summer.
make people park there for free. Not park
That's-
there, and then they can just walk into town, and then there's less cars in town because cars in town are crazy.
You were channeling Lars Carlson on this one. That's what
yes.
his suggestion was. Increase rates on Main Street.
Check 'em up.
Keep them also high in the garage because, frankly, the garage is more desirable both in summer and winter
Yeah.
than Main Street because it's
Sure.
covered
Yep,
and it's heated
exactly.
in the winter. So
Uh-oh, I'm spinning again, Sean. What are you going to say?
stop.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that.
So we dealt with parking, or at least we decided
Discussed
to talk
it.
about parking. We had an extended conversation about the units that we were going to bring online
Right.
and whether or not to reserve for town employees. And if you do
yep.
reserve, which the answer to A was yes, then B was, okay, what unit sizes? Then we looked at the demand, we balanced that with the practicality and the reality that we are about to probably lose a manager if we don't come up with a better
we
housing
talked about that.
source.
Moving on.
So-
Moving on.
I know. Well, the meeting was otherwise very plain vanilla.
Good.
I mean,
let's talk
see
about
what
sales
else.
revenue and sales tax revenue and real estate tax transfer tax.
Both of which happily are up. We
Oh,
were
good.
slightly negative with sales tax last time we talked, but we're actually up about 4% year over year.
Okay.
And real estate transfer tax is pretty much even.
Okay.
So we are exactly where we budgeted to be
Good,
with
good.
both of those things, slightly ahead in the sales tax category. But now we did take a more conservative approach this year because we thought the economy might be slowing down.
Yeah.
Not that we're necessarily seeing slowing. If you're walking down Main Street
Ooh,
today, it
doesn't
looks
look
like
so slow.
there must be cash registers ringing at every other store
Cha-ching. Yeah.
because the streets are pretty crowded. And this
Yeah.
weekend is the Telluride 100 mountain bike race as well as
Yes,
the Enduro
we saw those people
event.
spilling out of the Nugget. Wasn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and actually, those are new locals. That's Tobin and Jennifer Bailing.
Oh, nice.
They live on Main Street. They're from Texas, but they've moved here last year.
Wow.
And they are the creators of the bike race, and this is the 6th year that it's been going. So,
Oh, that's so great.
but much
So
more
people-
technically difficult than
Yeah.
what mere mortals like I could
Yeah,
do.
right. I
Yeah.
can walk on the sidewalk. That's about it. Yeah.
So-
well, good luck with that bike race.
So it'll be a
what's-
busy weekend,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, I mean, it feels like summer is halfway over,
I
which is
know.
kind of strange.
Yeah.
Certainly, the Ride Festival and the Bluegrass Festivals were both. I personally enjoyed them both.
Yes.
We had a lot of community comment about the noise level, though, from the ride.
The ride was very
And-
loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you might have some insight about
well,
that
just
too.
because we live in town, so we actually heard it, and it was quite
you're
loud.
on the east end,
yeah,
so-
yeah, louder than
I thought it
other
was
things have been.
not as loud as last year.
Well,
was that
I don't
your
remember.
impression?
I might not have been here last year, but I did know. I did notice that it was louder than
Yeah.
than I feel like other festivals are. But I don't. Do they test? Do they put decibel
That's a
count?
good question.
Measures?
So 4 years ago, we actually contracted with a firm out of Boulder that came and set up 5 monitoring stations throughout the town of Telluride.
Got it.
And they measured the decibel levels for each and every one of the festivals.
Nice.
Now, what did we do with that information, you might ask? The answer
What
was
did we do with that
nothing.
information? Oh, dang.
So it's sitting in a drawer in the manager's desk. And so we, as a council, asked the Parks and Rec director to recirculate the study to all of us. And we paid $75,000 for this baseline study. But I asked the question at the time, to which the answer was, well, we're not going to do anything yet. What are we going to do with this? Because do we need to have annual monitoring and therefore be able to explain to both the promoters as well as the community, well, the noise level wasn't as bad as it was last year. But then if you have, do you do an equal decibel
Knowledge
limit for
is
all
power.
festivals? Because
Knowledge
some
is
of them
power.
are different.
If we know what the number is, then we can know where we should be setting it.
Maybe we should have the Pinhead kids set up
Yes,
decibel
citizen
monitoring.
science. Yes,
Uh-huh.
we'll charge you $73,000 to do that. Okay.
Well,
Bring that up.
You guys can certainly
Thank you.
you can apply when we
yeah.
revisit
Yeah,
that topic.
Yeah, but those
So,
those festivals were amazing, and they're great.
They're great
participants
economic
in
drivers,
in
but-
the town community. We do appreciate.
now the thing to put
everything
on
they
people's radar
offer.
is the Ride Festival. My understanding is based on their case calendar application a year out. They've already applied for another Friday night concert. So we need to hear from the community as to whether now this Friday they happen to go over the curfew time 16 minutes.
Yes.
I don't know if you lived that at your home, but
I actually kind of appreciated it because I was really tired, so I left the park, and then I listened to it from home. I felt like I wasn't missing anything. It was actually kind of great. But
Well,
that's just me. That's not the
so-
opinion of the community.
well, there are different opinions. That's the other problem. How do you
Yeah.
balance these conflicting views?
I like it all.
And we have some people who are just exhausted by it, and others who think this is great because
on.
it helps drive the economy, and we only have a certain limited number of weekends to
Plus
make
it's music.
money
Music
here.
is fun. Yeah. So, so let's talk about, what have I not asked you about, or what are you looking forward to going forward?
Well,
for
I'm
the rest
looking
of the
forward to
summer?
Blues and Brews.
I know that'll be so fun.
And Cars and Colors.
And Cars and Colors.
So that should be a nice way to round out September.
Uh-huh.
But we've got the full August in front of us as well.
And
But
of course, we can look forward to the Original Thinkers Festival in October.
October 3rd through 6th.
Yes,
right?
well done. Yeah. But yeah, August is a whole, we have the whole month of August in front of us.
And, frankly, our Main Street businesses rely on healthy traffic during this time period.
It's happening right now. Should we get out and go shopping?
I think that would be a fine idea. Yeah.
All
All right, Sarah. Well,
Sean,
thank you very
thanks
much.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.